Hey, and welcome to another episode of our Innovation Live Hour. Sorry for taking a few minutes to get going here between schedules and new versions of Zoom. We're finally up and running here. And first off, we got a great show. Laura, do you want to set us up?
Sure. So we have Matt and Marnus, co-founders of Pineapple, and they're going to be talking to us about how they set out to overhaul insurance.
Yeah, excellent. Hey,
Hey,
Matt, welcome. Marnus, welcome. So, hey, first, for people who happen to have, I don't know, been on a rock, at least in the Hartford area, and don't know who you are and what you do, can you just kind of tell us about your company, what you do, and where you are today?
yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us on the show. Really awesome to be here and chat to you guys. So Pineapple, in a nutshell, we're a startup founded in South Africa about 2.5 years ago. The whole idea behind Pineapple is really to open up the doors of insurance and show that insurance, in reality, is quite a beautiful thing. It's a community of people who come together to help protect each other. And what we realized the problem is that people don't get to see this, and it creates a lot of distrust and a lot of resentment towards the purchase. So, along with trying to solve that problem, also making insurance more accessible to a younger audience, simple, easy, and tailoring products and user experiences to fit that demographic.
Excellent. And Marnus, welcome. We haven't seen you for a while. You spent quite a bit of time in Hartford, and then we got Matt, but well,
Not him.
Yeah, I don't know if it's an upgrade or a downgrade there, but currently it's running the South African operations.
oh, excellent, excellent. And Laura, I'm trying to find us. Are we in LinkedIn? We are.
We are indeed.
Excellent. All right. Check. Yes.
Yes, we have Rajala out there from Travelers. She says, hey,
Okay,
guys.
excellent. All right, Laura, you keep an eye in the comments. So all of you out there who are watching us, definitely just kind of ping us with a note, and Laura will kind of work the questions in. But listen, we're thrilled to have you guys here, and also know that you're continuing to make a lot of progress in the U.S. market, even despite a pandemic. And maybe Matt, you can talk about. I know just a few weeks ago you were all ready to pack up and leave South Africa. But tell us kind of what happened.
Yeah, so I mean, we've made some exciting progress in the US, and a couple of weeks ago, my intention was actually to move over to Hartford permanently to set up shop there and start running things up from the ground. And then this all hit, the pandemic, borders were closed, travel was out, and a lot of uncertainty around that. But just trying to navigate what that means. Obviously, I think every business right now is trying to understand what does this all mean for the future? When is it going to end? How is it going to end? Is it going to end, or what does the new normal look like? But in terms of the travel to Hartford, still that's the intention. And as soon as things open up a bit and return a little bit to normalcy, then that'll be where I land up.
Yeah, well, I think your team is really going to be sort of the poster child. I think I would predict in 2020 in definitely 2021 for companies that came here as part of the Startup Bootcamp program, took a risk coming to the U.S., joined our program, invested the time in the local market, and actually came up with some real exciting success here. If you were kind of going back and talking to your former self today, what would you both tell each other?
I think that's quite an interesting point, Paul. I think if you spoke to Matt and Marnus from 12 months ago, we'd be quite excited about where we are now. But that goalpost keeps on moving the whole time. So once you've achieved that what you thought might not be possible, then the goalpost at the moment is 100 yards on from where it was then. So it's sort of this ever shifting goalpost in terms of what we want to achieve. So I don't think we're celebrating yet or feel like we've made it yet. I think there's a lot more that we want to achieve.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know,
think
Matt. What
definitely
would you tell your former your past self?
Yeah, I think definitely echo that. I also think, just trust your own process a little bit. Things do take time. And yeah, don't, I think if my former self knew where we are now, it would be very exciting. But there's also a lot of hard work to get there, and things don't develop overnight. So I think, yeah, throughout this journey, that's sort of been the case of there's a lot of highlights, and a lot of those highlights are quite prominent on your timeline. But there's a lot of things that happen between each of those steps, which get you there. And so I think just put in the work and trust the process and wait for the outcome.
And what do you think, Matt? So let's make it up and say in 4 months, you find yourself in Hartford and you've been away in South Africa for a while. What's one of those first things you want to come back into this market and get accomplished? What's like maybe one of the first 3 on that list?
So I think from a personal point of view, definitely want to go see the jazz band there at the tavern. Those guys are great. They're playing. See some friends there. Shout out to all the friends. But from a business point of view, I think really starting to hire a team. So starting to build up the capabilities of the business there. Implement some procedures and really do some outreach and business development as well.
Yeah, let me ask you too. As you think, okay, however hard it may seem, starting a business in one country, moving to another, just to talk to us, like, what kind of advice would you give to companies that may be looking at, taking their business model from outside the U.S. to inside? What are sort of the unique issues you think you've encountered that maybe U.S. specific that people wouldn't have anticipated?
Yeah, I think that I would recommend would be to spend an extended amount of time in the place that region. So whether it's the US or anywhere else, and also I think my eyes were open to just how different parts of the US are. So it's really important to spend time where you want to activate that business value. And I think the couple of advantages there, obviously, an accelerator is a great sort of like Nassau Re and Startup Bootcamp is a great, I suppose, starting point to develop relationships and spend the time there because it connects you to the ecosystem. I think something that we found quite helpful was not going to a place that I think is a huge prominence around. So I think there was a lot of benefit for us being in Hartford as opposed to a New York or San Francisco, because I think the ecosystem, you're able to get into the ecosystem and develop those relationships faster than you would, I'd imagine, in those other places, just because the ecosystem is quite tight. So if there's the right sort of programs going on, I think that's very beneficial. So yeah, I think really don't just go somewhere without spending the time to get to know the market and develop a network beforehand.
So maybe think globally, act locally, right?
Yeah,
is what I'm hearing.
That's welcome. Yeah.
And Marnus, do you have any thoughts as well on that one?
Yeah, I think the one thing I would add there is that I think because a lot of the apps that people use across the globe has developed sort of uniform standards of what people understand and come to expect. I think if you in any app-based business, that technology is quite transferable to other markets, especially if you use picture-based elements which are quite universal. So I think that's something that was quite an eye-opener for us.
Interesting. Now there were some differences, right, in terms of Now I guess there are some differences in terms of just how property and casualty product laws work, right? I think there's some initial differences, fairly big differences in terms of how you pool or don't pool your deductibles. Am I mistaken on that, or is that kind of a major difference between South African and U.S. Insurance law?
So I think one of the major differences isn't so much the product, and I think there's a few things that stood out to me in terms of the landscape and how it's different. I think the first challenge in the US specifically is that insurance is regulated per state, so that every license, it's an individual state license. Every product is an individual state filing, which is different to South Africa, of course. But that being said, the states are massive compared to, like, there's one state can be a pretty big market by itself. So it definitely doesn't limit the opportunity, but it is just something to bear in mind. I think also what was interesting, more from like a theoretical point of view in terms of insurance, is that the way I understand it, in the US, every product, especially in the short-term side, gets filed, and almost your pricing is publicly available. So everyone can go and see how you're pricing your policies, which is quite a change to the way the South African market sees that function. So in the South African market, that's very much like a huge part of your IP is how you're pricing. So if you get different data together, or you're able to get more insights on risk, then you can select the better risks, and your pricing model is like your precious possession. But what did strike me about the US is that it does actually harbor a lot more trust to be able to understand why you're pricing. And that was one of the things that we as Pineapple wanted to solve, is showing you exactly how your premiums are being used and why you're paying what you're paying. And so even though that, I think the principle of actually making people file these pricings and having it publicly available is really awesome. I think there's quite a lot of cool stuff that can be done of actually making that accessible to the man on the street to understand. And so they don't feel, okay, why am I paying this? They can actually go and see why they're paying it and what they're being priced on.
So we've had a question from our friend Mary Crean here. And Marnus, maybe I'll kick it to you. What's some positive advice that you can give other startups right now?
Right now, or in
yes,
general?
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Sure. That's a tough one. I think some easy things that we found is using video calling for our meeting with our staff has made a massive difference. So we try and engage over video with people, because you can see that a lot of people just want to see a face, and their face just lights up whenever they see someone else, especially because we are still, South Africa is still mostly in lockdown. That's worked quite well, and we've found other ways to engage with our staff. So every Wednesday we have like a fun team activity. What we did this week was we asked everyone to submit baby photos of themselves when they were younger than, I think it was 8 months was the goalpost. And then we asked everyone to guess which baby is who. And I think it's good to break that monotony of we just engaging with each other for work. And other than that, I think what we realized quite early on is a lot of our productivity actually improved during this time. So I think we learned a lot about how remote working can actually work for employees these days, especially on the software development and the customer servicing side, where there's very tangible measurables. It's quite possible to work remotely and maintain the same results, or potentially even better results. So I think that shouldn't be seen as a hurdle. Our biggest fear during this time is just the change in market sentiment. But there's nothing you can do about that. I think the big thing is to control what you can control and not focus on the things that you can't.
No,
Yeah,
I like that, and I've been tell my daughter that a lot. She's like stuck in the house with me. But it's interesting. Let me just ask you too. In terms of working cross cultures, I found that even in English-speaking countries, it's kind of astonishing how different communication can be in terms of how we start a conversation, how we end it. Body language tends to be much more important, or context. I've found that, especially working with people in India. How has that not impacted your business? How has it? Like, how much different is it to interact with people in the U.S. when you're not physically here versus over something like a Zoom call?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I'm trying to think if it has had like a significant impact. I think there's obviously terminology which differs in every country. When I got to the US, um, I asked for a serviette. No one knew what that was. It's a napkin. Where's the dustbin? But that's a trash can. So it's just things to get used to. But I think from a business sense, obviously, English being the predominant language, I didn't feel that it's too much of a barrier to engage. Um, I mean, maybe that was just my thought, and to everyone I was engaging with, I was like, making crazy gestures or whatever it was. But I didn't feel that there's too much of a hurdle. I think as long as there's uniformity in the language, it shouldn't. I don't feel it should get in the way.
I think the one advantage we have in South Africa is that a lot of our media that we get here is Western media. So we are quite used to people's accents and the way of speaking and doing things. I think the one big business culture is that I think South African business culture is very reserved. So it's always like, be humble, don't be too don't sell yourself all the time. Whereas I think in the US culture, we've had to learn to sell what we can do a bit better, because I think the US general population is quite good at selling what they have well and with confidence, and that's something that we've learned quite a lot from the US culture.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say, just watching sort of what's transpired in the last few months here, it honestly feels like we have 5 different cultures here in the U.S. depending on part of the country. Laura, what other questions do we have?
We haven't had any others come through on LinkedIn yet, just more hellos from some of your friends out there. But I guess for me, curious, you talked about the goalpost moving 100 yards, 100 yards, 100 yards. What's the ultimate goal? I mean, is it world domination? What are we looking at?
Yeah, I think for me personally, for whatever products we work in, to be a household brand. So almost for the product that we develop to be like an Instagram where everyone knows what it is, and that's just the way that insurance is done. That's my personal goal post. I'll let Matt share his thought. We haven't discussed that recently, so it would be quite curious.
Yeah, I think similar goalpost is just whatever we're going to do, let's do it in a way where we're setting a trend and showing an example. And really, I think the overall goal to stay true to that vision of trying to make insurance better, and there's millions of ways to do that, but really like not just taking incremental steps, but taking quite big leaps, and knowing that, okay, you're setting a trend here. And obviously, we're great that whatever we work on is dominant, but I think just even being in a position where you're at the forefront and being able to sort of, I'd say, guide what you think the best practice in industry should be in terms of product development and getting your product out there and design, and accessibility. I think that's a big goal to be at the front and at the top there.
So we actually, that kicked up some dust here. So we have a little bit more activity from our friends. So let's see here from Chris Lee. What factors have driven your decision to go to the US over Europe via UK or Ireland?
The food.
That jazz band. Hartford, Connecticut.
Sorry, Chris.
So yeah, essentially
it's a great question because I think they're, listen, they're vibrant ecosystems in Europe. We've had some great, conversations and partnerships with companies there. I think like Ireland, there's a great group of people building an insurtech ecosystem there. Yeah, what was the somebody came knocking on your door and said, "Come to Hartford," and you did. Was that the reason? We asked.
So I think
Matt,
that.
Oh yeah, I'll
Sure.
go for it.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely part of the reason. Is it became the most tangible opportunity quite quickly. And although I think the US is a very intimidating market from the outside in, because you know about the levels of innovation, the amount of capital in the market, just the size of the market, as it's the biggest market in the world, and the coolest products in the world come out of the US. And so I think it is often intimidating, and it was always on the agenda, but it wasn't that tangible until I think the startup bootcamp, program came around, and they said, why don't you give it a bash, and so we did. I think also what drives that decision is Europe's attractive. I'd say the one advantage in Europe as opposed to the US is that Europe is actually, in terms of insurance licensing, is licensed as the whole of Europe. So if you get a license in one country, you can sell insurance in many other countries in Europe. But there's also different languages going on. So I mean, obviously English is well spoken, but there's many other languages in Europe as well to cater for if you do want to sell products there, and build a business there. So I think the combination of those factors. Also, obviously, the scope and size of the market, the acceleration of innovation that the US generally holds, in terms of being that title holder of, this is the place for innovation. This is the place where products are built that really change the world. I think that's quite attractive as well.
Yeah. What else,
Yeah.
Laura? Any other questions? We're close to the top of our 30 minutes.
We do. We can wrap with this one. So our good friend Lanaya wants to know, what about auto? Do you have auto in your sights for the future?
Yeah, so I think I'll go for it.
Go for it, Matt. Okay, cool. I'll take this one. So quite exciting. We launched our auto offering this month in South Africa. So quite a few exciting things to come there. And the plan is also to roll that out into the US market.
That's awesome.
Excellent.
So definitely, I think to answer the question, absolutely. Auto, I think there's a lot of scope for opportunity. I think there's been a highlight on auto insurance right now with the pandemic and people staying at home and not driving. And I think it's highlighted that there's a lot of product innovation work to be done, and perhaps a lot sooner than people realized. And I definitely think we're well positioned to tackle that.
Excellent.
I have one request sneaking in, because I know we're about to wrap, and I don't know if Paul wants to wrap now, or now. But Ojala wants to know, in one word, what is your favorite thing about Hartford? One word.
I think
I would say community.
Community.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, listen, we can't wait till you're back physically. This is a good substitute, but not certainly not worthy of or close to the real thing. So, Matt, Marnus, thanks for your time. Thanks for coming in from South Africa for us to join us, and looking forward to seeing you in person. Laura, do we have who's our next guest, by the way? Do we have him lined up?
Yes, we do indeed. Drum roll, please, as I'm pulling up the calendar so I don't misspeak. Let's see here. We have our next guest coming up on Tuesday, May 12th. We are going to be having Ben Akiva on. So both Brent and Bobby will be joining us.
Okay.
And then on the 14th, we have Wendy Aarons-Corman and Frank Center joining us.
Okay, so we'll talk death claims. Boy, there's topic that's front on everybody's mind. We see it loud and clear, and clearly, like claims, huge part of your value prop as well, right? You make it easy, make it understand why I'm paying premiums. Correct. That's one of your big value props on yours. So interesting topic. And then we've actually got another local startup focused on really building a string of APIs to make it easier to connect, like, and bridge legacy systems with some of the more front-end systems for particularly right on the P&C side. I probably misspoke a little bit, Laura, but very good group. Another company that's working hard in Hartford to build a business. So, listen, thanks so much for your time, and listen, join us again next. All of you listening, join us again. I think technology, knock on wood, worked. We got it all connection live, no break. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we'll be back again next week, and give us your feedback, and any other guests who want to come on. Love to hear from you, founders, people in the corporate environment here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Paul.
Well, thanks for your time. Cheers.